Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. It's the big match. It's Hearts versus Celtic, second against third. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm delighted to be joined by Laura Bradburn and Brian Degnan for his second appearance of the day on a Celtic State of Mind. How are you feeling? You up for it, Laura?
I was texting the group earlier and I was just like, I don't know. I feel almost as though the Alloa game was the first game I've not been able to watch like live this season, and I don't know. I'm just itching to go, basically.
I know, you're getting withdrawals, aren't you? I mean, see, the thing is, yesterday, we set off early doors down to Manchester. Myself and Kelvin, who you don't see on the actual broadcast, but he does all the behind-the-scenes stuff, videographer Kelvin. We went down to Manchester to meet Alan Thompson and interview him for a future edition of a Celtic State of Mind that should be out on the channel this weekend. But I set the stream up before I left, and it was only when I was down in Manchester that I learned of the passing of our former manager, Wim Jansen. So I know that Brian covered that subject in today's bulletin. Laura, you'll be covering it in some depth on Friday. But what are your initial thoughts? I know that team, like many Celtic fans of your era, that team's a very special side, isn't it?
It really is. Like for people around my age group, it was really the first that we remember obviously having any success in terms of a title win. So you kind of never forget that. And I think it was Brian and myself that were actually having a discussion in the group chat, and he said he can't remember an individual who's like made more of an impact at Celtic in a single season than Wim Jansen. Like when you look at what he came into, what he was being asked to do in terms of stopping Rangers completing the 10, bringing his Henrik Larsson, you know, all those really obvious but pivotal moments. And Dr. Joe passing away last year and Wim this year, you know, it just means, as is always the case, time marches on, but it doesn't mean that you can forget these people.
Absolutely not. I mean, in such a short space of time, Brian, he wrote his name into Celtic folklore. And I'm sure everybody will be remembering Wim Jansen this week and as we move forward as well. But again, if you're watching the action, you'll see that both sets of players are wearing commemorative jerseys. It's a united top so that we can combat and battle mental health awareness. You will know the story of young Devin Gordon, who passed away this week, and the message that the clubs are trying to push this evening is talk, listen and save lives. How important is that on the big screen with the big teams, Brian? We've got to raise this awareness. It's something that is just getting worse, it seems.
Yeah, it's such a tragic thing that affects so many people. If anyone hasn't saw today's bulletin, I urge you to go back and watch it. Kev spoke beautifully towards the end and encouraged people and spoke about this very thing and raising awareness. It's so important for people to understand they can just chat to people. And it's sometimes the hardest thing in the world to do. And if there's one thing that football's beautiful at, it's bringing people together. So just I hope and I pray that that this doesn't happen to anybody else, and I can only feel for the family there. As a father myself, it's devastating, and I feel emotional even talking about it. So I can only imagine how people who have been affected by it are. But yeah, it's a beautiful statement, and hopefully it gets the message across.
You do hope so, Laura. It is important to continually reaffirm these positive messages, and it is all about ensuring that people don't think that there is no one out there who will be able to understand what they're going through. Talk to them, talk them through it. Hopefully get out of that moment in time, which often it is, and deal with any kind of stress or depression that they might be feeling. And we're in a situation, Laura, where we're continually growing in awareness when it comes to mental health and mental wellness.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult subject to talk about because obviously I think the three people on this screen, everybody watching at home, we all have either suffered from mental health issues or know somebody who's suffered from mental health issues ourselves, and it's a subject that people don't like to talk about very openly. for somewhat obvious reasons. You know, the issues that can surround it can be very, very personal, and people are entitled to handle things in whatever way they see fit. My only hope from something like today, and I would urge anybody who is at the club listening to this or watching this tonight or in the future, is slogans are all very well and good, and yes, they do raise awareness, and yes, they do make people talk about it the way we're talking about it now. But I think clubs like Celtic, institutions like that, have a responsibility to reach out to their community, to reach out to their fans. We talked about the lack of communication from the club over the time of COVID, when I'm sure a lot of people were suffering mentally and physically, particularly fans of ours that, you know, lived alone, and fans of ours that you know are maybe elderly, and for whom going to matches was a major part of their week. And I would encourage anybody at the club listening or watching to, you know, go that step further than just the slogans and the slick marketing campaigns. Reach out to your communities, reach out to the people who are the heartbeat of this club, make sure they're doing okay, get them involved in things that get them out the house, that get them seeing and meeting other people. We've seen a lot of other clubs do initiatives that have done a lot for that, you know, Motherwell to name but one. And I think as an institution the size of Celtic, we should be doing more as a football club officially to try and support that.
We'll continue to speak about this, and I would tie that into the Former Players Association as well, Laura. Obviously, during the pandemic, having been directly in contact with two ex-players who were suffering mentally, and there was no support mechanism there linking them directly to the club, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Now, tonight's game, Celtic have dropped. They're on a great run, Brian. They've dropped only 2 points since the beginning of November. That was, of course, to St Mirren. And that was in a run of games where we probably expected, if there were going to be 2 drop points, for them to be dropped elsewhere, not against St Mirren. So it was disappointing that night. 19 domestic games unbeaten on the bounce. Hearts are sitting third and looking very much like the third force in Scotland at the moment. Now, when you look at that Celtic lineup, we've all done our predictions this week. Maeda and Rogic on international duty. We knew that. McGregor, Ideguchi, Kyogo and Turnbull all injured. It was interesting how we did our post-match, and then we looked back on the roughhouse tactics, as I called them, on the bulletin on Monday, and we got wave after wave of attack from other football fans saying that we were paranoid. We were asking for protection of our own players, and I think Celtic fans universally would agree that that was an issue, and just come out, Brian, and reaffirmed that himself. I mean, we're missing players tonight. We're missing players for a few months due to, you know, the approach of certain players and the mismanagement of those players by the referee. But we do have the starting lineup as a result of that. What are the key points you would make from that starting lineup tonight, Brian?
Well, the thing about the starting lineup tonight, I said it today, I'm really excited to see O'Reilly. I think a chance for him to come in and start in the deep end, because Tynecastle's a hard place to go. It's one of the hardest grounds in Scotland to play in. And he's going to go there, and he's got a lot of expectation on his shoulders because he's stepping in almost to Callum McGregor's shoes. And this is his chance. I mean, if he comes in there, I mean, Callum McGregor's undroppable, right? He's the guy who starts every week, and rightly so. But if O'Reilly can come in here tonight and make that position his own, because he's almost guaranteed to be there for the next 4 games at least. You imagine this is going to be the midfield until Rogic gets back or McGregor gets back. So yeah, it's really exciting. It's good. It'll be good to see if Hatate can sort of maintain the level of performance he showed, particularly in the first half against Hibs. I don't think I was being hyperbolic when I said it was one of the best debuts I'd seen, because I genuinely think it was. I thought it was really, really exceptional. Jack of all trades, he seemed to be absolutely everywhere in the park. So it's I said it today with the team. It's good that Forrest is back in as well, because he gives you the experience that you lose with McGregor being out, as does Beaton.
Yeah.
And with guys like Beaton, Big GG up front, Cameron Carter-Vickers at the back, there's a physicality there as well if Hearts do decide to go the roughhousing route. But I think Celtic, we might play around them, and this team's definitely strong enough to win. And just for viewers, in case anybody sees me looking at my phone or looking about, my Sky was in the blink before the game started. So I was sending a very angry email at the start of the call. It's what new, but just in case I get some big numbers.
You were drafting a strongly worded memo, weren't you? That's what you were doing. That's what else can you do? What else can you do? Now, Kyogo's Plimsolls, looking forward to seeing O'Reilly, and I think we all are. It would have been great if he could have been bled into the team, but we've not had that luxury this season. That unbelievable stat, Laura, that Alan Morrison produced to suggest that we average 6 injuries a game. I mean, that is astonishing. But one thing is for sure, Ange has always adapted to that scenario. He's pulled in players, he's played players out of position, he has played players a la Tony Ralston, who you wouldn't have expected to play, and he's got the maximum out of them. Tonight, have you any concerns? I know we're excited to see O'Reilly. It is his first game. He's getting chucked in there with Hatate, who has only played one game. So how important will Beaton's experience, like Brian says, be for the two newbies?
Well, I think my only concern for O'Reilly is that as much as people do down the standard of the Scottish leagues and the Scottish Cups, I'm not entirely sure of the level that he would have played against the MK Dons and whether this might be a step up for him. I think in terms of intensity, it might well be. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles that and adapts to it. I think Hatate is a class above from what I've seen in the first, certainly the debut game that I saw him in. Again, I think we're all very careful about trying not to get too excited about him, but he certainly seems to be a class of player that you're not really going to worry about him against anybody in Scotland, really. Beaton certainly has the experience. You're talking about a player who I don't even know, is he at a decade yet at Celtic? But he must be hearing it anyway.
He's in his 9th year.
Yeah, so his experience is going to be invaluable, especially in the middle of the park rather than in the defensive position where we know he can be a bit weaker. So I'm really looking forward to it. As far as the rest of the team goes, I think Giakoumakis has got another chance to really stamp his authority on that shirt while he's got a chance. While May does away with Japan and Kyogo goes out injured, this is Giakoumakis' chance to come in and do something serious. Jota, it's great to have him back, obviously, from his injury. If he can start having the impact that he's had earlier on in the season, then we're really in for a treat. I'm especially excited, actually, to see the combination of Jota and Forrest, because we've seen it so little this season. And although Giakoumakis is maybe not the one that you would want in between those two, he's not going to have any better chance to score goals than he will tonight if he's got supply coming in from both sides in the calibre of those two.
It's an interesting point there, Laura, talking about Jota and Callum McGregor. Do you reckon that's your first choice left and right? And we've barely seen them playing at the same time.
I think, on paper, if you're talking about full strength, everybody, no injuries, anything like that, then it's got to be Forrest on the right and Jota on the left, surely, because we've seen Forrest go on the left when Abada's been on the right, and Abada's got his own shortcomings, as we all know about, and Forrest, I think, is as effective as he can be from the left, but he's certainly stronger from the right. Just to go back to that point you were talking about, the stat from Alan Morrison as well, I think a lot of these other fans from other clubs that come and watch the show sometimes, they can say that we're moaning and things like that, but if you've got somebody like Alan, and they must have somebody at the club, well, they've got the sports science guy, they must have stats guys there as well. If you're wanting to make a case for the fact that we are, being manhandled by other teams, we're being treated aggressively, then we should go with a dossier of stuff like that, of stats that show, we are getting above average number of fouls against us, we are getting above average number of injuries, and then maybe the SFA would take a look at it. I think if you just go in hand and say, I don't like the way we're being treated without any proof, then it's easy for them to kick you out the door. But if you actually go in hand and say, I think this and here's the facts to prove it, then that would be a much more effective case, I think.
Yeah, and the facts are there. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Every day on A Celtic State of Mind. Tonight, you are watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch and Twitter. Feel free to get involved in the comment section. We do get a lot of comments. They're averaging about 1,000 across all platforms for every broadcast at the moment. So we try and get through as many as possible. I also realise that you have your own conversations within the comment section on your own, and that's what it's all about as well. Chancer, hail, Acsom, come on the hoops, absolutely. And Gio Patrick is coming in on the YouTube channel. We take our chances tonight, we win. You'll never walk alone, Vim. Absolutely, Gio. Now, when I'm looking back, just because you brought him back up there, Gio, I'm looking back at the time that Wim Jansen spent at Celtic. I always go back initially to the centenary year. And, that being the first season that I start going to the games, we win the double, all those exciting finishes to the games. You've got your darlings of the support like McAvenny, etc. By the way, my favourite player was, of course, Paul McStay and Andy Walker. And you think to yourself, it's always going to be like this. This is what it's all about. And then you go for 9 seasons without winning a league. And it was that man, Wim Jansen, who comes in and he wins the league for us. And again, there's been elements of this season that we keep harking back to the Wim Jansen season. We've said it quite a few times, actually. And the part of that season as well, let's not forget, the signings were excellent. They were exceptional, many of them. But he also inherited a few signings. There were a few legacy players where deals had been somewhere down the line and the players came in. But he dealt with them and he maximised their performance. And I think Ange Postecoglou's done that. I mean, there's a suggestion by some Celtic supporters that, Ange Postecoglou may not have been involved in the transfer of James McCarthy. He might have been on a list that preceded Ange's arrival, Brian. And another one of those players, if you're to look at the style of him against the style of the team, and I'm totally aware he's the only striker that we have at the moment, it's Giakoumakis. So the big thing for me tonight is people are saying, you need to step up to the plate, etc. Well, there's no other option, Brian, because he is the only striking option. Therefore, he's got to step up this evening. And what better time to do it in what can often be a cauldron of Tynecastle? Do you think he's going to turn a lot of people's opinions of him, mine's included, around tonight?
Yeah, I think he will. I was talking about today on the show, and I think there's a lot of potential there in him. I think he's that kind of poacher type goal scorer. And I think what you see is, if you look at like Kyogo and Maeda, their strength is they're pressing and they're running, but they don't actually get a lot of touches in the ball. They don't really link up a lot. They tend to run into space and then sort of strike for there or put it across. I think with Giakoumakis, what you see is it's slightly different. Maybe take the ball in and try and play a pass to your attacking mids, which in this case are going to be O'Reilly and Hatate. So I think the dimensions are slightly different, obviously, but I think he's the type of guy that, because that finish against Alloa was absolutely clinical. It was a brilliant finish. And I know we should have squared it for a Maeda a couple of minutes later, but I did question maybe if Maeda gave him a shout. Maybe, he wasn't looking up, maybe didn't hear a shout. And given the fact that it was his first game starting for a while, I think allowances have to be made. But the only way he's going to prove it is by scoring goals. And that's the best way to shut up any sort of criticism or opposition, isn't it? If you're a striker, it's buying them in. And again, like I echoed with O'Reilly, I think actually this is his chance. If he goes to Tynecastle, and he knows he's under a bit of criticism, he knows he's not Kyogo, he's not Maeda, he knows he has to prove himself. And if we can go to a very hostile ground and do that, that bodes incredibly well for the season moving forward, because, he spoke quite well, I thought, in his post-match, saying he was still annoyed about the miss against Livingston. He knows it's not been good enough, and he knows what he has to do. So, you can talk the talk, but you need to walk the walk, and I expect him to do it.
Tonight is the night. D67, you're watching on YouTube. Big performance needed tonight. I think we'll deliver. Hail, and Paddy Lavery always coming in to make the comments. So welcome to the show, Paddy. Good evening to all at Acsom. I'm hoping for a great game this evening. Yeah, absolutely. And as I've said before, get yourself subscribing to the YouTube channel. That's where you'll find the Alan Thompson interview, which I think will go out Saturday or Sunday, probably Sunday. It gives Kelvin a wee bit longer to edit it, Laura, because he is a perfectionist. What's your thoughts on Giakoumakis this evening? I know that he is the only option, but Ange also said he needs to do better.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I'm concerned about is, there were some people talking about that his season last season as top scorer in the Eredivisie was a bit of an anomaly, and that he hadn't had a season like that before. And the one thing that crosses your mind is, is that going to turn out to be the case? The longer that things go on, you worry more that that's the case. But I think he's also been unfortunate with injuries, and I think we need to remember that. Strikers, more than any other player in a team, need a chance to settle in, to find a form, to get used to the way the team plays, and for other players in the team to get used to the way they play. So he's needed that run of games, and with, like I said before, with the strikers away or injured that we have, and him being our only option, he's going to get that run, obviously pending no further injuries, and this is his chance to really take advantage of the misfortune of others and score those goals. Because I do believe that you don't score the number of goals that he did last season in a league that is the standard of the Eredivisie, in a team who probably weren't getting as many chances as others, because of course they ended up getting relegated. You don't score that number of goals and then just lose it within a matter of months. So I'm hoping the goal scorer that we signed is still in there. And okay, a goal against Alloa is fine and fair enough, but I think goals against Hearts would do a lot more to secure his place in the hearts of Celtic supporters, and I sincerely hope he does it tonight.
So do I, absolutely, Laura. Now, when we look at the back line, Joe Hart in goals, saved their blushes against Alloa. I'm not talking about the 45-yard effort by Salmon, but the other one. Josip Juranovic, I thought Ralston looked pretty rusty against the Wasps, so Juranovic is definitely the first choice right back at the moment. Greg Taylor, here's an interesting one for you. Greg Taylor, other than Nir Beaton, who's played over 250 games for Celtic, and James Forrest, who's played tonight will be his 430th game. Greg Taylor has had more assists than any other player, so he's third in the lists of the assists from the starting lineup. And I think that he certainly is the first choice left back. Brian Degnan, would you agree with that?
Oh, he's 100% first choice in this squad. I've been fairly supportive of Greg Taylor. Actually, I've not been too critical, but much the same way I feel about Ralston. I feel that Taylor and that they're both good players, and I think they can have great games. We need a great player at left back. I think Juranovic can be a great player for us at right back, and I think as good as Ralston's been, as much as I like him in the team, for the physicality he plays, for the aggression he provides, and his attitude, there's no doubt Juranovic is the better player. He just is. It's just a fact. And I think there's a better left back out there for us than Greg Taylor. That being said, it's no disrespect to Greg Taylor, because I think he's a good player. I think he's contributed a lot, and I think actually being in Angie's team, and see the way Greg comes into the midfield, because he's not a great crosser. Greg doesn't get the byline cross traditionally the way a fullback would, but what he does do is pick a pass. Now sometimes, particularly last season, when he was bombed, he would get down and then stop and turn and pick a pass. So he was slowing the play down on that left-hand side, whereas now he's drifting in and making small, more incisive passes. And actually, I think it's benefited his game. So I think he's an example of a guy like Ralston who's really stepped up under Ange and merits his start. And he's certainly, and I like Luca Big Scales as well, but he's certainly the best left back in the squad now. I do think there's a better left back out there, but I've no concerns about the position either with him there.
Well, what do you think of that comparison then, Laura? We've got a player in Taylor who'll do a job similarly, on the right-hand side we had a player in Ralston who'll do a job. But when we do go out into the transfer market and buy the left-back, you're looking for an upgrade. And I think it was actually Brian that made the point earlier in the season. We've probably not done that because we do have Bolingoli still in the building. We've got Scales who can cover, and Montgomery who is going out on loan probably within the next few days. And that's the right move for him. But do you think it is a case of, we'll continue with Taylor, but when the time comes, we will be looking for an upgrade?
I think it's one of these situations where, Ange's had so much to do in terms of changing the squad around and fixing problems that were a much bigger priority, that maybe left back was one of these situations where, as you and Brian have both said, it was a case of, it needs fixed, but later, if you've got, I don't know, if you've got new curtains that you need to go up, or you've got a flood in the bathroom, you fix the flood in the bathroom first, but and I think that's basically the case where it was. It doesn't mean you don't want the new curtains, and I think Greg, unfortunately, is the old dowdy ones that we need to get rid of. I think he's been a great servant for the club. I think he's good enough for the domestic league, certainly in a team full of players of the standard we've got now, but Certainly, when you see the calibre of players that Ange is striving to bring in, especially when you do a direct comparison like that to Juranovic on the other side, you've got to say, for all that Greg Taylor has done a lot for Celtic, there has to be better options out there, and I'm sure while Ange might not have prioritised it up till now, he'll certainly have it in the back of his mind going forward.
Yeah, we've run through the team, and part of that was the fact that Jamesy Forrest starts this evening. Where are we then with the Forrest Abada scenario, Brian? Are we just happy that we've got two guys of that kind of quality that you can call upon for the right-hand side? Because, I mean, I think obviously Abada, people are saying he's inconsistent. I think over the piece he's had a very good first half to his first season in Scottish football. Jamesy Forrest has been injured in and out. You want to see him getting game time, but you'd have absolutely no qualms with bringing on Abada at any stage tonight.
Yeah, and that's the good position you want to be in. I think you look at the comparison, you know what you're getting with Forrest. You know he's consistent, he's experienced, he's a winner, and you know what his skill set is. Abada, he's funny. He seems like, he reminds me a bit of Samaras in that when he's on his game, I think he's excellent. And I sometimes feel like the way Samaras was sometimes a striker, sometimes a winger. I feel like Abada's, I've always fancied him up front. He looks like a player at a position sometimes outright, I think. But he can't deny his contribution. And for a player of that age, I mean, if that was Adam Montgomery contributing that, he'd be singing his praises. So you have to look at the balance. In saying that, go back to your early question with Laura. I actually think your best winger combination is Maeda left and Jota right, with Kyogo in the middle. I think that front three is an exhilarating prospect.
But that's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting proposition as well.
Aye, that would be my front three, just based on, again, because even our wingers, a lot of time they don't play like traditional wingers, because again, Jota is at left to cut in and he's right, and he even does that when he's crossing, the kind of looping crosses to try and catch your Abada coming in off the wing. But listen, it's just good that we're finally in a position. If you could rewind the clock and look at some of the podcasts for the start of the season, and especially in the summer, we were thinking, how many players are we going to need to get a squad here? Like, the bench is really weak. You know, gets in. Whereas now we're actually saying we've got a choice. Who's your best right winger at the club, and each option is a good one. And that's a really good position to be in, I think.
No, you're spot on with that. A couple of more comments coming in before we go to the action. AJSC Technology comes in to remind us that young Doak is on the bench again tonight, which is interesting. It is interesting. I mean, 16 years of age, Ben Doak. He's had some interest, I believe, from other clubs down south. He's a midfielder, number 84, which shows you how far away he appeared to be from the first team squad. But it's great to see him on there. But when I seen that, and the fact, obviously, Jota's back in, I thought to myself, where's Mikey Johnson? He wasn't on the updated injury list. Someone suggested the other day on the broadcast, Laura, that it might well be that there are discussions elsewhere in terms of a move for Mikey. There were suggestions Aberdeen were interested, but they've gone out and brought someone else in from the Dutch league. So what's your thoughts on Mikey Johnson? Do you think we're trying to sort a move out for him?
It's a funny one, because on the one hand, I'm thinking it's great that we've still got him, even though we've made all these new signings, because one of the big problems we had was lack of bodies in the squad. But at the same time, I think he's so far off the quality of the players that we've brought in and the quality of players that Ange is obviously looking for. It's kind of the same situation as with Greg Taylor. I think he'll do, is what the phrase is, until we get a better option. Would I like to lose him before the end of the season? Probably not, purely in terms of the numbers thing. But I think if you ask me where his future lies long term, I would probably say away from Celtic Park. And that's not to do him down in any way. I think for another Scottish Premier League team, he would be an absolutely outstanding player. But I think for Celtic, he's just not exactly what we need.
We shall see how the next few days evolve, and I'm sure there's going to be a few surprises. Hopefully another player or two in would be good. Mark comes in with a prediction, so here we go, 3-2 to Celtic, says Mark. Hopefully we do get 5 goals and we win by the odd goal in 5. What's your thoughts tonight, Brian?
2-0. I think we can keep tight at the back. I think we've looked really solid and resilient recently. and we will score. I don't think we'll score a barrel load, but I think Hearts will actually come out and try and attack. They'll play into their hands much the way Hibs did. I think tonight suits us down to the ground. So yeah, 2-0.
I know, Laura, that you don't like making predictions, so I will ask you for one. What's your thoughts on tonight's game?
I don't know. I may as well at this point, for all my predictions go well, I may as well just say Giakoumakis hat-trick and I'll go 3-0. So we'll go for that.
Love it. Positivity on the Acsom match day. That is what we like to see. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. We'll be back at half-time. Enjoy the first half action. And thank you to Brian Degnan and to Laura Bradburn for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.